as we keep alluding to, the excitement for this year. And I think it starts off with, we talked about Clifford, and he did a great job. I believe he handled all his career the right way, with honor. And like you said, he left the place better than he came into it. But now it's the Drew show. It's the Drew era.
What's your thoughts on that? Because I got some things that I've highlighted, and I think the way that they handled him coming in last year is something that needs to be talked about. And I'll elaborate it after you give me your thoughts. But what's your thoughts on Drew's hype? Really the depth in that quarterback room too, because Bo's not a slouch.
Yeah.
You got some young kids coming in who've come in, like they got guys that can play 3 down. Yeah. And that was a problem for them 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially when Clifford went down against Iowa, that banged the season up pretty good. Yeah. So, again, we keep getting back to this depth thing, but I want to hear your thoughts about Drew and ultimately where you see that going.
I mean, like you said, we keep going back to it, but I think the competition in that room, as we know, it breeds a better product.
Yeah.
No matter what position it is. And I think we saw that with Drew coming in last year. Mm-hmm. And obviously we're not in the QB room. We don't know how that camp went last year, but I think Drew pushed Cliff to, put his best foot forward out there, as he obviously was going to. But, competition makes everyone a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I think the way they handled Drew, I think was the perfect way. Obviously he proved that he belonged on the field. And he got some snaps even outside of when, Clifford was a little banged up. Mm-hmm. But I think those snaps, that experience is invaluable. I mean, as we hopefully will see, whether it's the second or fourth quarter and some of the blowout games or the big moments, that I think in Iowa this past season, Cliff went down for a little bit.
Yeah.
And he stepped in there. And I think what proved that they have confidence is when he stepped in there, they didn't hand it off.
Yeah.
Right.
They didn't run a quarterback counter.
They didn't run a quarterback counter.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact first play, but I know that corner route he threw on the money wasn't caught, but that right there proved to me, I was like, okay, they like this kid.
Yeah.
He clearly had a pretty good camp. He seems pretty comfortable. And then we saw little teasers throughout the year, and I think that was the perfect way to handle a QB controversy everybody wanted it to be.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I think Penn State has a knack for putting not unrealistic, but they put a ton of pressure and high expectations on kids coming in, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to necessarily zero out Penn State. I think that's a place everywhere, right?
It's the culture in sports now.
But I felt it. I experienced it, and I think when they came in with Drew and there was all this controversy, when I stepped in here, we really didn't have anything proven prior to that, right?
Yeah.
Like Matt just left, had Tyler Ferguson, and then Stephen Bench. Stephen Bench ends up transferring, so. Realistically speaking, like it was a much easier choice, I think, to roll me out there week 1 because you didn't have a guy who was on the verge of being the leading passer in Penn State history, right?
Right.
So Cliff had a ton of experience, and when you have a young guy like that with a roster that kind of knows him, believes in him, Mike Yursich believed in Cliff, but they also wanted to get this kid some valuable reps. I thought they did a great job of, like you said, inserting him in positions where he had to do things that you're not necessarily going to ask a guy who's just like, hey, emergency, throw him in there, figure it out. Like they put him in some pretty unique situations, and I thought they brought him along very well. And I think all of those experiences are going to stack up, and ultimately, there's still things he hasn't done, right? He hasn't had to go down and win a game with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. He hasn't had to start fast after a slow week at practice. Where his body hurts after the previous week. Like he hasn't had to figure those things out, but those things come, and when you have the talent that he does, you expect the coaching staff and him mentally to grow and mature to be able to handle those things. So leading that up into this year, the one thing that I will say is unlike my situation, and I think unlike a few other situations out there, he's got a ton of stability around him. Yeah. That hasn't been at Penn State, like I said, for a long time. They have the ability to turn around, hand the ball off to Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, 2 studs, one of the best backfields, I think, in the country.
Put some respect on it, man. Put some respect on it.
You know what I mean? They got a great running game. I think Yursich has finally identified who he wants to be offensively, and they're able to do that and impose that pretty much against anybody.
Yeah, that's a beautiful sight.
And I'm a firm believer. I thought Penn State was pretty gimmicky when he first got here. Like they would throw those unbalanced sets in, and they do some goofy things to kind of create explosives.
Right.
But now you're seeing them get explosives out of their everyday day one install. And I think that that's what you see the best programs in the country do consistently. And then they have, some wrinkles based upon what they're seeing.
It's college football still.
But it's what they're seeing on game prep and tape, right? So Drew's got a ton of hype this year. I'm really excited for him, but ultimately, like I said, I don't think it's necessarily a question about Drew Allar.
Right.
I think it's a question about, can the rest of the team come in, continue to bring a consistency around him, and then let him grow organically through those experiences. They're going to be good. They're going to be bad. You know what I mean? There's going to be ups and downs, but you got to really be able to figure those things out.